Hello, my name is Devin Scheef, and I am a third-year MFA candidate in Scenic Design here at UNLV. The reason I chose to be a scenic designer was I really wanted to embrace the challenge that comes with balancing the intellectual aspects of a script with the emotional and metaphorical aspects of actually mounting a show. It's always an exercise between two extremes. There's a whole spectrum of scenery that you can end up with, and it all depends on the collaborative efforts of the entire team. The first thing you have to do is serve the needs of the script itself, give the playwright all of the tools that they need to make their story come through on the stage. But then you also have to work with your directors and actors to give them everything they need to perform their vision of the show. And then finally, of course, you have to serve your audience. They're the ones who are paying to come to see it after all, so if you're not giving them all of the visual elements that they need to understand the story correctly, then it's kind of a failure all around. So striking the balance between those three things is really what's necessary to put on a good show. And scenery is kind of the first character that an audience is introduced to before they ever see an actor on the stage. So you really literally and figuratively set the stage for what is to come when you see a show. And it's a very exciting adventure, and every show, of course, is completely different. Peter Schaefer's Equus is a fascinating play to do the scenic design for. And I was very enthused when I learned that we would be doing it because I really wanted this show for my third-year creative project. And the reason is Peter Schaefer writes his plays without a solid time and place. Equus jumps around in time, and there's roughly a dozen locations included in it. And the scenic design for it, therefore, has to be more abstract than the quasi-realism that we usually deal with in our Nevada Conservatory theater productions. So it demands a look at the stage as a whole and requires a designer to determine what areas could potentially represent individual locations and yet tie that all into a single story and still have the audience be aware and not be confused when locations suddenly change or past changes to present or the real turns into the imagined, which happens in this play quite a bit. So when you can't literally set a stage in a specific location for the whole play, you have to deal with the question of, well, what exactly visually are you going to see on stage? And Equus, at its heart, is a mystery. It's the journey that a psychiatrist undergoes with one of his patients to discover what made that patient, that young man, commit a heinous act of animal cruelty. And if you've never seen the show before, you are allied with that psychiatrist, and you're learning things as he learns things. So more and more information about this mystery is revealed as the play goes on. And of course, by the end, you discover what actually drove this young man to stab the eyes out of 6 horses. And so when we addressed the actual visual look of the show, I addressed it from the perspective of how do you represent mystery physically on stage. And what you're going to see when you come and see Equus is actually an abstraction of a road cutting through a forest. We've all seen those paintings, right? Those paintings and those photographs of just the road disappearing into the horizon with trees on either side. And so what we all understand together as a whole when we look at those pictures is there's a journey to be taken. And it's exciting, but it's also frightening because you don't know what's at the end of that road. And you also don't know when you're looking through those trees if anything is looking back at you or not. So hopefully a lot of these feelings will come across in the final design of the show, which you see them constructing behind me right now. And there's a few tricks up its sleeves as well. The other very exciting thing about this particular set is we are integrating the lighting for it directly into the scenery itself, which is again something we don't typically do in this theater, but in a play in which the set is abstract enough to represent 12 individual locations anyway. Why not go ahead and bring in all the lights and all of the speakers and just really make a theatrical event out of it? It should be quite a spectacle to see.